In the last few months, a ton of new camera gear has been released, and while it's very tempting to always upgrade, in this video I just want to share a few thoughts on why upgrading isn't always what it's cracked out to be. Now, these opinions are entirely based on my own experience, on speaking to thousands of you on social media, and on running over 100 in-person workshops where people shared with me their thought patterns and reasons for upgrading or considering upgrading. And finally, towards the end of the video, I will share with you a few legitimate reasons why upgrading will actually be worthwhile. Also, this video is sponsored by MPB, but more on them later on. Just because the photographers that you look up to or follow online use a certain type of top-of-the-range camera, it doesn't mean that you need to go out and buy the same camera. For example, I'm using this Fujifilm X-H2S, which is the top-of-the-range Fujifilm APS-C camera. Now, I love it. However, I would not recommend it for 90% of people, because 90% of people do not need a workhorse. As a matter of fact, if I take this camera, which is £2,500, and I take a Fujifilm X-T3, which is now, what, 4 or 5 years old, you can pick it up for £600-700. I take 2 photos, I show them to you, you will not be able to tell, and I will not be able to tell, which photo was taken on which camera. And at this point, you might be saying, well, you've wasted your money. What's the point of spending all this money on a top-of-the-range camera if a 4-year-old camera that costs a third can do the same results? And the reason for it is because it's the little details that matter to me that will not matter to most people. For example, having a CF Express card means that I can copy files and write files literally 10 times quicker. Being able to switch between photo and video with zero lag, and being able to go from taking photos to filming a video within a split second, to me is worthwhile, whereas to most people it just doesn't matter if it takes 2 seconds longer. Other small details like this camera will have a full-sized HDMI port for when I'm back at home with a big monitor, I can plug it in and monitor myself when I'm filming these videos. How many hobbyist photographers will be doing that? Not very many. So you see, it's all of these little details that will make these cameras so much more useful to people who make a living from cameras, yet not be very useful for the everyday person who does photography or even taking videos as a hobby. Feeling bored and uninspired with our creative hobby is totally normal, and it's actually quite common as well. In most cases, it's simply a sign that you need to either rest, change something up, or challenge yourself. Now, there are many different ways to get out of a creative rut. However, buying new camera gear with the hopes that that piece of gear will pull you out of the rut, that doesn't always work. The main reason for it is that humans are generally very good at adapting to changes. So, for example, if you're using a Fuji X100V, you're bored and you think, you know what, I'm gonna splash out and spend $5 on a Leica, and that will definitely pull me out of my creative rut. Well, the problem with that is you go and you get the Leica. After the first month, you enjoy using it. Second month, you're starting to kind of get used to it, and by month 3, that Leica means no more to you than the Fuji X100V or any of the previous cameras did. Because you see, when you upgrade something in your life, that upgrade soon wears off and it becomes your baseline. It's a bit like when people upgrade their cars. They were happy with their little Ford, but then the moment they get a Ferrari, yes, it's great for the first 4 months, but then after that, it's just a car. And when people get a salary increase, you know, initially they were happy on what they were on, but now they have, let's say, double as much money. Initially, it's a rush. Initially, it's like, oh, I can do all of these new things, but then after a while, that then becomes the norm and becomes the baseline. So any underlying issues with your photography or with your approach to photography that you've had before the upgrade, they will soon come back up once your Leica has become the new baseline. Now, this one we can all relate to, because how many times have we looked at our photos and we thought, why is this photo not very good? Maybe the shadows are a bit muddy. Maybe the detail is not good enough. Maybe the colors are just a little bit off and the image doesn't feel right. And we naturally start looking at our camera and thinking, is it the camera's fault that this is happening? Maybe if I get an f1.2 prime, I'll have more of a separation. Maybe if I get a 60 megapixel sensor, I will have sharper images. Or maybe if I get a Fuji camera, I will have better colors. The reality though is none of those things are that important, because if you're using a Sony or a Canon, if you know what you're doing, you can emulate the Fuji look. And as for the perceived sharpness and the overall tonality of the image, well, if you just focus on shooting in good light, knowing how to expose, knowing how to spot good light in the environment and where to position yourself in relation to the subject to get that good light, well, you can get a very good photo on a phone that will look like it's come straight out of a Sony a7R5. And as for the muddiness of the image, well, maybe look at simplifying your scenes. Maybe look at how you can create simple, minimal compositions, which will overall give your images a cleaner appearance. Because honestly, if you focus on lighting, on composition, and on getting better with editing, most, if not all of these issues about your own photos will go away. Now this is another common one, and I get this all the time. I'll get messages on the lines of, oh wow, I love your photo, what camera do you use? Oh, I love your photography so much, I went out and I bought a Fuji X-T3 in hopes that my photos can look like yours. Now, as flattering as this is, it's also not the real reason to upgrade your camera, certainly not if it's the only reason. So I can tell you that I've used any Fuji camera from the last 6-7 years. Right, and you can go out and you can buy that camera like an X-T2, an X-T3 or an X-T30, doesn't really matter, and you can get the same result as long as you're using the same focal length, as long as you have the same lighting and the same composition. So a better question to ask, rather than, oh my god, I love your photo, what camera did you use, is what's the focal length that you've used for that image, and is the image cropped? Because a focal length becomes useless if the image is heavily cropped. You can ask, what was the lighting on that day? What was the atmospheric conditions? Was it foggy? Was it hazy? Those questions will get you much closer to the answer than simply asking what camera was it on and then going out and buying that exact camera, hoping to get those exact results. Before getting into the reasons why you should upgrade your camera gear, let me first thank the sponsor of this video, MPB. MPB is the world's largest platform for buying and selling used gear. So if you decide to upgrade your camera, buying it used from MPB will not only save you money, but you will be contributing to a sustainable circular economy. Finally, you can sell your current gear directly to MPB and get a great price and a hassle-free experience. If you want to see what MPB has in stock, please use the link in the description. By supporting my sponsors, you also support me, so thank you ever so much for your time watching the segment. Now let's look at some legitimate reasons why one would consider upgrading their camera, and the first one is physical limitations. So let me give an example. You bought a camera, it comes with an f/5.6 to f/6.3 kit lens, and you really want to shoot at night. However, whenever you go out, you find that your ISO is at max or your shutter speed is so low that all your photos just don't work out at night. There's too much motion blur, there's too much noise, and you get frustrated. Now, if you come to me with that problem, this is where I would actually say, you know what, consider getting a small and lightweight prime, because that will easily make all the difference that you need in order for you to start enjoying nighttime photography and getting the results that you were hoping for. Another example is if you want to shoot in heavy rain, you love shooting storms, you want to shoot by the sea when it's windy and it's stormy. I mean, you would need a weather sealed camera. A plastic bag will only work for so long, and generally speaking, a degree of weather sealing will be essential. This is where I would recommend you going out and buying a weather sealed camera. Also, upgrading for a specific feature that you need is also a legitimate reason. Let's say, for example, you have shaky hands for whatever reason. Many people do. Then maybe getting a camera with IBIS can save you a few photos, especially at lower shutter speeds. Now, there is some merit in saying that a camera is nothing more than a small black box that lets light in, and the rest of it is the art of photography, the process of photography, and your enjoyment of photography shouldn't be dependent on the camera that you use. I've seen that knocked around YouTube a few times. Now, this is only partially true, because honestly, as a tool that we're using in our hands to take photos, I think a degree of enjoyment needs to be there in terms of the gear itself. Let me give you an example. I've always fantasized about only shooting with my phone. I love the freedom of only having my phone, not having anything else on me. But in reality, whenever I go out to use my phone, I just hate using it because of the ergonomics. I always feel like it's going to drop out of my hands. I don't know, I just feel detached from the experience of photography when I use my phone. In the same way, you might own an old, large, full-frame DSLR, which you love, but it weighs 3 kilograms. It's this big. And then you think, well, I want to go out and take photos, but I just can't be asked to carry this around with me. I'll just leave it at home. Well, in that case, I might say you're probably better off selling it and getting like a small Ricoh type camera or a Fuji or something like APS-C size that you can easily just throw around your neck and take it with you, because chances are it will come out with you a lot more, and because it's with you a lot more, you'll end up using it more, you'll become a better photographer, you'll take more photos, and that's kind of the whole point. The final and the best reason to upgrade your camera is when you have talked yourself into upgrading so much that you physically can't sit still until you've upgraded your camera. If you're in that position now, don't listen to me, don't listen to anyone else, go and upgrade your camera. And the reason for it is because that is going to be the best lesson that you can possibly have in terms of whether you should have upgraded that camera or not. Because the reason I'm sat here saying that to you is because I've been through that. Many other photographers have been through the upgrade cycle when we thought it's going to make a difference, but in the end it didn't. However, some people will listen to me and say, yeah, maybe I'll keep it, but most people will actually still go out and upgrade. So if that's you, go out, upgrade, and learn from that experience. Because also realistically, unless you have to rob a bank to be able to afford this camera, I mean, it's not the end of the world, and I guess you'll have a nice camera at the end of it anyway. Okay, that's all for this video. Please let me know in the comments what you thought about these viewpoints. Do you agree with them? Do you disagree with them? Is there anything else that you would like to add to what I've already mentioned? That's all the comment section is for. I want to thank you for watching this video. I want to thank you for the continued support on the channel, both this one and the new travel channel, which is up here somewhere. And that's it. Thank you ever so much. Have a good weekend, have a good week whenever this goes live, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.